Wow. Okay, so are you ready for this?
I'm ready. Hit me.
We're diving into Paige Lohman's story. And let me tell you, it's got more twists and turns than, well, you'll see.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So Paige goes from stripping and addiction
Oh, wow.
to leading a ministry.
No way. Okay, so how does that even happen? Like, what takes someone down such completely different paths?
Right. It makes you think about transformation and second chances and all that.
For sure.
But to understand, I think we need to go back to the beginning. Paige grew up in Reno,
Okay.
and both her parents worked a lot, like all the time. So she was often lonely, feeling unloved.
Yeah, those early experiences, I mean, they can really stick with you.
Totally.
And they often shape how we deal with things later on, our coping mechanisms. Paige actually believed she had to do, like, amazing things to earn love.
Oh, wow.
Which, when you think about it, makes sense, considering where her life went.
Yeah, it's like she was already searching for something to fill that void.
Right.
And then when Paige was 13, her mom passed away
Oh, God.
after 5 years of fighting breast cancer.
That's awful.
It is. And losing a parent, I mean, that's going to be tough at any age. But
Yeah.
for Paige, well, she was already struggling with anorexia.
Oh,
And
wow. I didn't realize that.
yeah. And actually, she was in the hospital with a feeding tube when her dad told her.
Oh, my gosh.
It's hard to imagine. And you wonder how someone even processes that, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Later, Paige actually said she was one of the few people at her mom's funeral who didn't cry.
Like she just shut down completely.
Exactly.
That's heartbreaking.
It is. And tragically, Paige turned to marijuana to cope with the grief, the depression, the anxiety.
It's a common coping mechanism, unfortunately.
It is. And by the end of high school, Paige was addicted to heroin.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Battling severe depression and anxiety. She just felt, insecure, afraid, like the world was this unpredictable, unsafe place.
Yeah, I can see how that would happen after everything she'd been through.
Right. Like, how do you even begin to feel safe after that?
It's a lot to process. And it's important to remember that addiction, it often comes from a desire to escape pain or fill a void.
Mm-hmm.
In Paige's case, she was looking for relief from all that emotional turmoil.
Makes sense.
The grief, the feeling of rejection, abandonment.
It's easy to judge from the outside, but
Yeah.
Paige's story really shows us that we don't always know the whole story, what someone's going through.
Definitely, everyone's fighting their own battles.
Exactly. So, despite all this, Paige actually graduated high school and even got into college.
Good for her.
But the addiction was still there, and during her senior year, she started stripping.
To make ends meet, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and to fuel the drug habit.
It's a tough situation to be in.
It is. Have you ever, been in a position where you felt like you had to make quick cash no matter what?
Yeah, I think most people have at some point.
Uh-huh.
You feel desperate, and those quick fixes, they can seem really appealing.
Exactly, and especially for Paige. I mean, she was working in clubs where drugs were everywhere.
Oh, wow. Talk about a recipe for disaster.
Right. She was trapped in this whirlwind, needing money for school, money for drugs, stripping to get it.
A vicious cycle.
Totally. And the more she got in, the harder it was to get out.
It's like a web,
Yeah.
It just keeps pulling you in deeper.
Yeah. And after barely graduating college, Paige made a decision that took her even deeper into the sex industry.
Oh,
She became an escort.
wow. So this is a big turning point, I'm assuming.
It is. At first, she told herself it was temporary, just for quick cash, but...
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Right. But 1 month turned into another, and she got trapped.
Yeah, it happens. It's hard to break free once you're in that world.
So true. And she was living this double life, keeping it all secret from her family and friends, especially her dad.
Oh, man. That kind of isolation, you can really make things worse.
Absolutely. It's like she was living in two completely different realities.
Yeah. But, even in those really dark times, there can be glimmers of hope. Like, remember those moments in your own life when something unexpected happened, something that just shifted your perspective?
Yeah, I think we all have those moments.
Well, Paige had one of those moments, too.
Okay, so tell me about it. What happened?
One night, this group of women came into the dressing room where Paige worked. They brought food, warm food, and they offered kind words, and they even prayed with the girls.
Wow, that's powerful.
And they even told them to write down any prayer requests they had and put them in a prayer box.
That's amazing.
It was. This small act of kindness, it had a huge impact on Paige.
I bet.
It planted this seed of doubt, this little flicker of hope. And in a place like that, hope was desperately needed.
It really is a reminder that even in the darkest places, Human connection, compassion, it can make all the difference.
Yeah. Sometimes just a little bit of kindness can change everything.
So true. And Paige actually ended up writing down a prayer request, hoping for something to change in her life. And soon after, she felt compelled to confide in a friend.
Okay, so this is where things really start to shift.
They do.
She finally broke the silence and told her friend everything. But what she didn't realize was this was going to be the start of a big intervention.
Uh-oh. What happened?
So her friend, she was worried, obviously, and she reached out to Paige's dad.
Okay. And how did he take it?
He was devastated, just heartbroken. And he gave Paige an ultimatum: rehab or their relationship was over.
That's tough.
It is. But he couldn't just watch his daughter destroy herself, especially after losing his wife.
It's that fine line between enabling and empowering, right?
Exactly. And it's hard to know when tough love is the right approach.
It is. But it seems like in this case, it was what Paige needed.
It was. She went to a 30-day rehab facility, got clean, and afterwards she moved to Los Angeles, hoping for a fresh start, to rebuild her life.
It's that classic move, right? A new city, a new beginning.
Yeah, it's like hitting the reset button.
But as we'll see, the road to redemption, it's rarely a straight line.
Oh, I'm sure.
Even with her new commitment to sobriety and the fresh start, Paige's journey was far from over.
Oh, this is getting good. All right, I'm ready for the next part.
Okay, so Paige is in LA trying to rebuild her life after rehab. Fresh start, right?
Yeah, you'd think so. But sometimes those fresh starts, they come with their own problems.
Oh, for sure. And for Paige, money became a big issue. Like, making a living in LA, it's not always easy.
Exactly. It's not all glitz and glam. And for someone like Paige, trying to make ends meet, those old habits, those easy ways to earn money,
Yeah,
they can be tempting.
super tempting. It's like you're caught between a rock and a hard place. And, well, for Paige, it meant relapsing. She went back to escorting.
It's tough. Recovery isn't always, a straight line. There are setbacks, those times when the past just pulls you back in.
Totally. It's a good reminder for all of us, though, right? I mean, we all stumble sometimes. But this is where Paige's story takes, like, a really remarkable turn.
Okay, I'm listening.
So even though she was back in that world, Paige had this, like, huge realization. She was alone in her room one night, feeling the weight of everything, and she just dropped to her knees and prayed.
Wow. Can you imagine that moment? Just that feeling of desperation, surrender.
Yeah, it's powerful. She later said it was like she finally understood God's love, his sacrifice. It wasn't about judgment, it was about grace, redemption, even in her darkest moment.
That's incredible.
It really is. And so right then and there, Paige committed her life to Christ. She left the escort agency for good.
That's amazing.
She found a church, a place where she felt welcomed, supported, and she just dove headfirst into her faith.
It's amazing how sometimes our greatest pain can lead us to our greatest growth.
It's true. And for Paige, the church became her community. She started living with these women, strong in their faith, and they mentored her, discipled her, helped her grow.
The power of community, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like those people in your life you can always count on who help you through.
Those people are everything.
They are. And Paige really blossomed. She talked about how it was this time of deep connection with God, intense spiritual growth, and she even contrasted it to, the highs she'd experienced before.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. She said faith was like the biggest high you could ever have, a high that never fades.
It makes you think about what we're all searching for, that true fulfillment. So where's Paige now? What's she doing with her life?
Get this. Paige is now married, has a daughter and a son.
Wow, that's wonderful.
And she works for a nonprofit. And get this, she leads her own ministry. It's called Girl Redeemed.
No way. That's incredible. She came full circle. That's amazing, right? She took her pain and turned it into a way to help others.
Yeah, she's using her experience to help people who are still trapped in that world.
Yeah.
Victims of sex trafficking, women in the adult industry.
Talk about turning your pain into purpose.
Right. And what really strikes me is how Paige's ministry is all about empathy, understanding. Like she's not judging. She's meeting people where they are.
She gets it.
Yeah, exactly. Offering compassion, a way out.
It's like she's saying, hey, I've been there and there's hope.
Exactly.
And she's honest about it, too. Like, she talks about the joy, the freedom she's found in her faith, but she doesn't shy away from the challenges either.
That's what makes her message so real, so powerful.
It's authentic. So, okay, we've gone deep into Paige Lohman's life. What are the big takeaways here? What can we learn from her?
Well, for me, it's about the fact that people can change. Second chances are real.
It's never too late to turn things around. Paige is living proof of that.
Exactly. No matter how far down a path you've gone, redemption is possible. And it also highlights how addiction is a cycle. It's
Right.
not always a straight line to recovery.
Paige's relapses show us that.
They do. And they remind us to never give up hope.
Mm.
There will be bumps along the way, but keep going.
Yeah. And then there's the power of faith, right? I mean, that moment when Paige felt God's love, his forgiveness,
Yeah, that was a turning point for her.
it gave her the strength to break free, start a new
A
life.
life with purpose, meaning.
And Paige's story, it also really shows us how important forgiveness is, both for ourselves and for others.
Oh, absolutely. Like her father's tough love, her own journey of letting go of shame and guilt, and how she offers grace to those she ministers to.
It all comes back to forgiveness. It's how we heal.
It is. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Paige Lohman's life, I want to leave you with something to think about.
Okay, I'm ready.
Have you ever felt like, you've messed up so bad there's no coming back? Like you're
Yeah.
too far gone?
Yeah, I think we've all felt that at some point.
Paige's story is all about resilience, but it also makes you wonder what's possible for each of us.
Right, like what are we all capable of?
Exactly. What's that dream you have, the one that seems impossible? Maybe, just maybe, it's not so impossible after all.
That's a great question. Paige reminds us that change is always possible. Hope can come from even the darkest places. And we all have the potential to transform. So yeah, never underestimate second chances. And never underestimate yourself.
Couldn't have said it better myself.